Candidate Forum. Briefly, for those who aren't familiar with PAWS, we are a nonpartisan campus initiative that aims to increase civic engagement. Pause to the Polls feels it is important to bring awareness to local elections. We wanted to create a platform for students to feel more involved with local politics. This afternoon, we will be hearing from both the mayoral candidates and several candidates running for seats on City Council. All candidates were invited, but unfortunately, a few are unable to be in attendance due to prior engagements. We are appreciative of all those who could come tonight, and we thank all those in the audience for attending and supporting the work we do. We appreciate the Office of Public Support, particularly Stacy Treewathabach and Marianne Wood. We have prepared questions relevant for the campus community. We will first hear from the mayoral candidates, followed by the city council candidates. And if there's time after, we will open up to questions. You can submit a question using one of the slips of paper that will be passed out. If you would like to speak to the candidates afterwards, you're more than welcome to do so. And now I will hand things over to Lauren Willis, who will be introducing the mayoral candidates.
All right. Today, I will be introducing the two candidates for mayor, which is Melanie Bach and current mayor Ken McClure. You guys are welcome to come to the stage. All right. Thank you guys for coming today. I will be asking the questions in alphabetical order. So we're going to be starting with Melanie Bach first. And the first question is, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for office? And please limit your answer to 2 minutes.
Is this on? Okay. My name is Melanie Bach, and I moved to Springfield in 2004. I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and my law degree from the University of Memphis in the main thing that brought me to Springfield was the safety, community friendly atmosphere here in Springfield. Memphis was the 4th dangerous in the city the year that my family chose to move to Springfield. My husband was able to transfer because he works for the railroad. He's a locomotive engineer. And I just adore Springfield's community, especially how clean, safe, and friendly it is. But some of that has changed, so I'll talk about that later. But more recently, for the past couple of years, I've been the president of the Galloway Village Neighborhood Association and led in the Question 1 ballot measure from November, led the Vote No campaign on that. And about a year ago, I got my certification in civil and family mediation.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be asking the current mayor, Ken McClure, the same question. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for local office? And then you also have a 2-minute time limit.
Thank you and good afternoon, and thank you for hosting this forum. I'm Ken McClure. I'm the current mayor. I've been mayor since 2017. I am a 5th generation Springfieldian. My family goes back in Springfield to before the Civil War. Generations 6 and 7 also live here. I've had a very, very blessed career, and it's given me very, very good experience. I'm a product of the Springfield Public Schools, Roundtree, Jarrett, Parkview, a bachelor's degree from what was then Southwest Missouri State, master's degree from the University of Missouri. My initial employment was with the Missouri Senate Appropriations Committee, where I learned the state budget, became staff director there, deputy director of the Department of Economic Development, where I learned the economic development tools. Was appointed by Governor Ashcroft to the Missouri Public Service Commission, which is the oversight agency for all of the state's best-owned electricity, natural gas, water, and at the time, telecommunications landline services. Associate General Manager at City Utilities, and then was Chief of Staff for Governor Blunt at a very key time in the university's history. 2005, I was Chief of Staff when we passed the legislation that changed the name of this university from Southwest Missouri State University to Missouri State University. I retired after 8 years of service as a vice president here at Missouri State. I'm currently vice president emeritus. I taught political science for 6 years. Public service is important to all of us, regardless of what your vocation is. And we should all seek to serve, whether that's in elective office, whether that's through advisory boards, through not-for-profits. Ultimately, we are a volunteer community. What makes us function and successful as a community is people who are willing to give of their time and their resources to give back into our community. And that was what prompted me initially to run and hopefully to continue to serve.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to the next question, starting with Melanie. What are 3 issues important to you that Springfield faces during this upcoming term? And please limit your question to 4 minutes.
I think that the issues that are affecting most Springfieldians' everyday quality of life are the public safety or crime, the lack of affordable housing, and homelessness. I'm glad that Mayor McClure brought up the communication and activism in the community, because I do think that it's important that we recognize that the biggest asset that our community has are its citizens. And part of the reason that I decided to run is because of a general feeling of disconnectedness between the citizens and the city. And what I would like to see to help heal some of our problems is to create a better connection between citizen groups, neighborhood associations, the general public, and our police department. I've been asking for a couple of years now, having created the largest neighborhood watch in the city and organized that with Officer Preby. That program just sort of fell to the wayside, but I've been asking for a couple of years for it to be reinvigorated. And thankfully, now that I've mentioned this a couple of times publicly, we got an email today that that's happening. So that makes me feel great, because no matter what happens, I feel like I'm already making a difference just by having this platform and being able to ask for those things. Housing, I think we have way too many vacant residences in Springfield, and there's currently a housing study going on. It's my hope that we can get some solid numbers on those houses and then work with the property owners to see what we can do to make sure that those become homes for people, whether they're renters or whether they are able to be owner occupied. I think that our goal should be owner occupancy, but regardless, we don't need to build apartments everywhere when we have vacant houses, on every single street in this city that are just being allowed to degrade to a terrible state. And then homelessness, I think that it is a huge problem and everybody's seeing it. And if you ask me what the solution is, I will tell you that I don't know, but we need to get creative. Which also brings me to the issue of, I can't tell you exactly what we're doing and what's working or not, because I feel like we have a fundamental lack of transparency in our city government. And with $40 million of ARPA funds coming to our city, that alone, I think warrants us filling our vacant internal auditor position so that we can have an online portal where citizens can see what money is coming into our city from various sources and how that's being spent.
All righty, thank you. And now I'm going to be asking Mayor McClure the same question. What are 3 issues important to you that Springfield faces during this upcoming term? And then a 4-minute time limit with that.
Public safety is the top priority. It's the top priority of City Council. It is mine. We want to have a fully staffed police department within the next 2 years. We have made good progress. We have allowed for retention pay. We have bumped pay up. We have worked in retirement systems, all to try to recruit and retain good police officers. I believe that we'll be able to do that. Crime is going down, but that is not enough. We have to have it to where people feel safe in their homes, in their places of business, where they worship, where they recreate. And that is the focus that we're going to be highlighting during the next 2 years. I'm proud to have been endorsed by the Springfield Police Officers Association, as well as the Southern Missouri International Association of Firefighters, our first responders. Those are critical, and I'm proud to have those agencies supporting me. Second area where we need to highlight is housing. We have a housing situation in our community that is not good. 41% of our residents are homeowners. That is extremely low. It's to the point where it's difficult for people such as teachers or police officers to even afford enough for a down payment. We need to work through that. I'm very pleased with what's going on in Jefferson City. There's going to be a bill voted this week called the Land Bank legislation, sponsored by Representative Bill Owen, which I believe will help us take great strides in increasing some of that home ownership. We also have a Restore SGF, a 501c3 that's set up again to focus on home ownership. We need to make sure that we have affordable housing, safe housing, adequate housing, and that's a challenge. We do have a housing study that's going on. We had the first of 3 community meetings last Thursday. There will be 2 more coming up in the coming months, but that's going to help us focus on the demographics in our community. What type of programs do we need to have to encourage home ownership, safe and appropriate apartment housing, safe, appropriate housing of all types. And so that's going to be a key issue. The third one is economic vitality. We have to continue to grow as a community. We have to do it in the right way. We want to make the community an attractive place for young people to stay here, to go to college. We have 40 to 45,000 college students in town at any one time. We want to encourage them to stay when they leave. If they leave, we want them to come back. But this has to be a vibrant community for them to do that. And so that's going to be a focus over the next 2 years.
All righty, thank you. And now we're going to be moving on to our last and third question. And I'm going to start going back to Ms. Bach over here. What about young voters gives you hope, and how, as mayor, would you address issues that impact them? And then you have a 3-minute time limit with this one.
Young voters are so hopeful for me because you don't really just start voting and then stop voting. So if you start voting young, you're always going to vote. And when you vote, you take it upon yourself to educate yourself about what you're voting for. And it just leads you down sort of an awesome little rabbit hole of, of the public sphere, to where you learn about civics and taxes. And I have 2 young voters in my home, 18 and 20. And they are definitely taking the time to educate themselves. And I just think that what I would do to address issues of young voters is, first of all, listen. I am not going to be a mayor that doesn't respond to emails. I will respond, and I will treat everyone with dignity and respect when they come up to speak at city council, when they take out of their time. That's a serious matter, is to plan a speech and have the courage to come up there and engage with your leadership. So I would like to see some improvement in that area. And I just think that we all need to work together. I could help try to direct people to organizations that may be already addressing some of the issues that they are facing, or connect them with others in the community that are facing the same issues. But I think that the first step to that is listening and making our city council and our city government a welcoming atmosphere.
Thank you. Mayor McClure, I'm going to be asking you the same question. What about young voters gives you hope, and how, as mayor, would you address issues that impact them? In a 3-minute time limit.
It's been my privilege over the last several years to have met frequently with the network, a grouping of young professionals in their 20s and 30s. And what I have learned from them has just been tremendous. What they want mainly is to have a seat at the table, and I highly endorse that. We're talking about a community that is going to be impacting them for the next 20 years. We just approved a few weeks ago a 20-year comprehensive plan that will guide what this community will look like for these young voters. So we want to continue to be able to do that. I have been so pleased to see the involvement as we've gone through all this. We have, for example, 3 young professionals on our city council right now. They give us great insight and great improvement. I want to be able to hear from young professionals and encourage them to stay here. What we have to do is have a community that is growing, that is exciting for young professionals to want to stay. And so that begins with what we have in our higher education institutions. This demographic is critical. So we encourage them to vote. We encourage them to be a part of that process. But mainly, we want to make sure you have a seat at the table and have a say in what goes on. A good example is the recently completed comprehensive plan, which I just referenced. We had over 10,000 points of contact during that process where people could come in and talk about what they wanted to do, what they wanted the community to look like. Our young professionals were a key part of that, helping us to draw a map on what we want Springfield to look like for the next 20 years.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day. And now I'm going to invite Emma Bloodworth to come to the stage to moderate for the city council. You guys.
Hello. Okay, there we go. Okay, so as I ask the candidates to this stage, please sit in order of your listing on the program. So first up is Bruce Adib Yazdi, Jeremy Dean, Brandon Jensen, Abe McGull, David Noakes. And we have also received responses to our questions from Callie Carroll, City Council candidate for General Seat C, who could not attend today's forum, and I will read her answers after the candidates who are here have responded. And the candidates may have to share mics. So for this question, you will have a 2-minute time limit. And so Bruce, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for local office?
Testing. Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. Thanks for having me. Great to see some young folks' faces out in the crowd here today. My name is Bruce Adib Yazdi. I am an architect. I graduated Louisiana State 1988, moved to Springfield in 1990. So I've been here 33 years. In 1996, I actually married my soulmate and wife, who's in the audience here today, Joyce Eichen. She's a Southwest Missouri State graduate. And I believe in our city. I believe strongly that Springfield can and will be a great place to live, work, and play for many years to come. Just a little point of clarification for everybody that doesn't know my last name, Adib Yazdi, is Iranian, Persian, previously known as Persia. For some of you who may not know, just a quick little bit of history on Persia is that Cyrus the Great, back in 539 BC, was the first leader and the first king of Iran. And he declared that all people had the choice for religion and that established racial equality for that country back in BC. And we are still talking about that today. But I think it's really important to look back on your own heritage and the heritage of everybody that lives in our city. I'm an architect, like I said. I was a partner with a local firm here for about 23 years. I did a lot of work across the country for several local clients, such as Bass Pro Shops, John Q. Hemmons, O'Reilly Automotive. Great breadth and depth of experience across the country doing that kind of work. I also engaged in our community during that period. I actually went to several city council meetings and talked about bicycle lanes back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I was placed on the traffic advisory board in order to facilitate some of that conversation, and eventually over a couple of decades brought bicycle lanes and bicycle friendly to Springfield. I possess the breadth.
Thank you for your response.
I possess the breadth and depth of knowledge in business design and planning, and the activities that are shaping our city future is what brought me here today.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for a local office?
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for having this. First of all, I've been able to see what you've done these last few years, and it's inspiring to say the least. Like they said, my name's Jeremy. I'm running for City Council seat C. I was born and raised here in Springfield. I attended Willard kindergarten through high school, where I left and then went to UCM up in Warrensburg. I studied business education as well as political science until I came back here. My family had some health emergencies that I ended up moving back for, and then started working in the healthcare industry myself. So I'm currently an OBGYN office coordinator for a local nonprofit here in Springfield. That kind of opened my eyes, being able to talk to people every day here in the community and hearing the struggles that they have. In healthcare, you really hear things outside of just healthcare. And so whenever you hear those problems, it's just very eye-opening to know that we have the opportunities and the resources here in Springfield to help people. It's just making those known. And I think that that's really what led me to run for city council, is just being able to be a voice for those people and trying to get the help that they need.
Thank you. Brandon, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for office?
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity. I was telling David on the walk-in here that I think the last time I was on the stage was as a SOAR leader dancing to Lip Gloss by Lil Mama. So I'm glad to be leaving that all in the history behind us. But I'm a Springfield area native, so grew up in Nixa, went to college at Missouri State and got a degree in community and regional planning, which really focuses on how to help municipalities manage growth, how to do municipal budgeting and how to handle infrastructure, but most importantly, how to work with folks in a way that allows for them to actually provide meaningful feedback to their elected officials and see the city make responsive efforts to those needs. So after graduating from Missouri State and like a lot of younger folks in our community, I moved away for a couple of years to a larger metro where I learned that it is really difficult to be a small fish in a big pond, and then had a job opportunity bring me back to Springfield, working with communities in the region, helping them plan for growth and engage with their citizens in a way that allows for them to be responsive. Through that experience of moving away and coming back, I actually had the opportunity to see a lot of the really amazing things that the city of Springfield is doing by investing in our natural environment, by investing in our infrastructure in a way that's having really transformational impacts on people's lives. But I also see some of the same challenges that communities were facing 50 or 60 years ago that you've already heard about. So housing challenges, issues with rising crime. And I think there are a lot of lessons learned from other communities that have already gone through these experiences and the advances that we've seen in city planning and just managing communities. So based off of that breadth of experience and my passion for the city of Springfield, I believe that I have the skills and experience and the passion to get the job done.
Thank you. Abe, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run?
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you all for inviting us here to speak to you and the students at Missouri State University. I'm Abe McGall. I'm currently on city council. And I have had the honor and privilege to actually be a mayor of Pleasant Valley, Missouri, and on the city council of Pleasant Valley before becoming mayor. I'm also a retired Navy officer, as well as a retired member of the Department of Justice as Assistant United States Attorney. So I'm a lawyer by trade. So part of my job has always been to handle and to try to process complex issues. And most cities all have complex issues. There's no simple issue in any particular city. So that's probably the thing that I like to do. And because I'm a member of the community, I always see if I have a skill set that can help the city grow and prosper, I'm always willing to raise my hand and actually serve. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to serve on city council here. So it's always been my philosophy, if I can improve the lifestyle of my neighbor, guess what? It improves the lifestyle of me too. So that's why I'm running for office again.
Thank you. David, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run?
Yeah, sure. I have to take notes. So you get to be my age, you get to do a lot of stuff. So bear with me. Married 37 years. My wife graduated from SMSU, which is now MSU. I have a 34-year-old daughter that's a graduate at MSU. My first year was at SMS. I remember when Freddie didn't have air conditioning. So you had to have a fan when you went to sleep. Anyway, I have a 13-year-old dog. It's a Yorkie Karen named Archie. I've lived or worked in Springfield for 38 years. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Drury. I'm a graduate FBI National Academy, Quantico, Virginia. I'm retired from the Springfield Police Department, the rank of Major. I have 7 years as probation and parole officer here in Springfield. Hobbies, just a little personal. Hobbies included competitive martial arts. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo a long time ago. I'm older and have more sense now. Horses, I had horses for a while. I actually went to graduate from Oklahoma School, horseshoeing school in Oklahoma City. And then I've been a competitive triathlete, done an Ironman distance, cyclist, runner, swimmer. I learned wakeboarding just about 6 years ago with my daughter. I love to kayak and do stream fishing. I love anything that's action oriented. So I have a wide depth of experience. Why run for council? I want to give back to the community that has supported me through my extensive policing career here in Springfield. My turn to give back use those skills and things I learned on the street and while being an officer. I also have background. Dave, what else can you do besides being a police officer? I was the president of I live in Chesterfield Village. I was the president of their HOA. I did that for 3 years, then serving last year as president. Anyway, I want to give back. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm now going to read Callie Carroll's response to a bit about herself and what inspired her to run. So she said, I grew up in Springfield and graduated from Missouri State University. After undergrad, I moved away and worked as a news anchor in 2 different markets. After 5 years of working in news, I moved back to Springfield to take a job at Missouri State as the director of the athletics department. While working at the university, I was able to get my master's degree in professional studies. After working at Missouri State for 3.5 years, I took a job doing business development for OMB Bank. While in my role at the university and in my current role now, I have had the opportunity to get involved in the community. I serve on a number of nonprofit boards, and I am on the leadership council for Springfield's Young Professionals that is made up of more than 500 members. Through those experiences, I deepened my love for Springfield. I was also able to see that if a young professional worked hard and showed interest, that they could have a seat at the table when it came to getting involved in a city. I am running for city council simply because I care. The decisions being made now in our community are for the generations to come. I wanted to be a voice for the future of Springfield and help use my skill sets of relationship building and communication to move our city forward. Okay, for the rest of these questions, I'm not going to repeat them, but please ask me if you need me to repeat it. Okay, so this has a 3-minute time limit. What are 3 issues important to you that the Springfield City Council will face during this upcoming term? And Bruce, you can start.
Thanks. So there are lots of issues going on. And matter of fact, there's some current ones already underway. Very quickly, the forward SGF plan that the mayor mentioned is just recently adopted. There's going to be a zoning code that comes with that so it marries up the housing study that was mentioned earlier. There's a study right now on Lake Springfield redevelopment, a downtown parking study, and probably several others. So those are all things that are already happening and they're important, but I was asked which ones are the most. And actually, I'm going to step back for a little bit from all the day-to-day issues and think about it as an architect. I feel like the plan, the forward SGF plan is amazing. It's got a lot of great content and it's got a lot of great bullet points and a lot of great strategies. But I almost feel like we need to step back for a minute and take a look at the vision of what we want this city to look like and feel like in 20 years. I think as an architect, people ask me, okay, I want you to design me a building. And I say, okay, what do you want in the building? I want some offices. I want a warehouse space. I want some other things. But then I ask them, what do you want it to look like and feel like when people come to your front door? And I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves as a city is what do we want this place to look and feel like in 20 years? We know what it might need to have, but what it looks like and feels like is really important. Second thing is, it was mentioned earlier by the mayoral candidates, housing seems to be a really hot topic. Well, and it's not because I'm an architect, I think we need more housing. It's because we need more housing and we need it in the city. We don't need to build more stuff out in the county. We don't need to build more stuff in Nixa and Ozark. We need to look within our city and look for the opportunities for housing. And not all of it exists in single family style. We need different styles. We need some townhouses, we need condos, mixed use developments. And again, not because I'm an architect, but because we have 3,000 people a year roughly at 1.7% growth. That's 3,000 people a year that need to come and live in this city. Where are they going to live in the next 10 to 20 years? And creating these alternative housing opportunities keeps people from moving to the outside of the city. We also need to do, as the mayor mentioned, the Restore SGF plan to reinvest in our disinvested neighborhoods and bring those housing stock back to a good state. Lastly, I think we need to rebuild some trust with our community. I feel like there's a big communication gap between the city, residents, and in this case, developers and development world. That gap exists, and I feel like all 3 stakeholders need to be at the table at the discussion of almost every project that affects a neighborhood or even a business area. So I feel like having those conversations and having all 3 stakeholders at the table are going to be important. For that conversation to be productive, we got to have a vision of what we want the city to look like overall so that they can be applied to each individual project.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yeah, so I will give you my 3 and I will keep them pretty short and simple. So my first one is young voices. I feel like for too long here in Springfield, we've had a lot of young people here, but no direct representation. We talk a lot about how we want our young people to be involved, how we want them to stay here in Springfield, but it's really hard to get them to do that if they don't feel represented here in Springfield. I am one of those people that fall within that younger demographic. So I am dedicated to listening to them as much as I'm dedicated to listening to everybody else. Number two, like everyone else has said, is affordable housing or just housing in general. It's important that we do have the housing here in Springfield that we need. We have, like a lot of people have said, vacant houses that are just decaying or becoming unusable. We need to make sure that we're investing into those houses, those people in those neighborhoods to bring them back using mixed zoning uses, but using those in ways that neighborhoods are actually happy with, not using them in the terms of what developers want or what people that have money in their pocket want to do, but what the people that live in that neighborhood want to do. Number three, and probably my biggest point, is investing local. I think whenever it comes to the commercial contracts that we have here in Springfield that we're doing with our city, that we are favoring Springfield businesses. There's a reason that Springfield was recently listed as the poorest city in the state of Missouri, and it's because we give our money away. We collect tax money. We should be giving it back to the people that live here. That way we can have better roads, better incomes, and just better sustainability all around.
Thank you. Brandon, your response?
Yeah, so I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I'm going to try and package some of the things that have been said in a different way. The three main issues that I would hope to focus on are: first, creating safe and vibrant neighborhoods. The second is addressing the housing challenges that our community is facing. And then the third is making sure that we have a government that is transparent, accessible, and educating citizens about its activities. So in terms of creating safe, vibrant neighborhoods, as I think a lot of folks have already mentioned, crime is a very important thing to address within our community. We have some recent data available that's pretty heartening, showing that in almost every category, crime is decreasing within our community. But we continue to see gun violence increasing, and folks still don't necessarily feel safe in their homes. So making sure that we're continuing to provide the adequate support that we need for enforcement of the existing laws that we have on the books, making sure that our police officers feel supported and are accountable to the public, but then also looking at ways to begin investing in more long-term strategies that help prevent crime from beginning. So that's community-based violence interventions. What this really looks like, and we have a great program to model it after the PAR officers that our city has, wherein police officers are assigned to individual neighborhoods, are out making connections with individual homeowners and business owners, and then keeping track of the issues that are pertinent to that local neighborhood and then solving them before they become bigger issues. That also means supporting vibrant neighborhoods. So making sure that we have opportunities for folks to invest where they already live, whether that's in their own home and providing resources for folks who may not otherwise be able to, like through the Restore SGF program, but then also making sure that there are opportunities for folks to begin creating livelihoods for themselves within the neighborhood that they already live. That helps to address some of the traffic issues that folks are concerned about if they're able to live and work within the same neighborhood. It solves a lot of the tangential challenges that people complain about and we don't necessarily have a direct way to address. The second issue that I would focus on is addressing our housing challenges. And so this boils down to three main points. So the first is, again, making opportunities for folks to reinvest in the housing that they already live in, whether it's owner or renter occupied, so that we can begin to lift the floor of housing that folks live in. We have some units within our community. The city's done a really good job of starting to address some of the poorest conditions of housing, but there's still a long way to go. With folks living in housing that has holes in the roofs or it just really is not suitable for folks to live in. The second item would be making sure that we're creating a diversity of housing options. So not everybody dreams about living in a single family home that they own. So recognizing that we need to be creating a diversity of housing options.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Abe, your response?
Sure. Thank you very much. Good question. And based upon my experience, I wish there were three main issues that I could address in a city. A city is a very complex ecosystem, and there's a myriad of issues that we must address on a daily basis, from fiscal responsibility, from taxes, negotiating with contracts with the police and fire. It is a myriad of issues. We actually, in fact, the city itself, between the city and city utilities, we manage roughly about almost $3 billion worth of assets. That's how significant the city is. And that's the number of issues that we have to address on a daily basis. My philosophy has always been the simplest thing, no matter what office I've held in public service, has been keeping your taxes low, growing the economy so that when you graduate from MSU, you're not looking for a job is looking for you. And thirdly, I think it's also improving the quality of our neighborhoods, which encompasses mainly good police and fire protection, good insurance, and a number of other issues that help to make our community strong and vibrant.
Thank you. David, your response?
Sure. Make this quick. Fighting crime. Residents and visitors need to be safe and they need to feel safe. Homelessness. Councilman Abe Nagol should not feel bad on this. I look back on Vision 2020. We've been working on this problem for a long time. In 2004, that was addressed as an issue, very complex problem. We need to identify and address the individual needs of those that are homeless and those at risk of being homeless. That takes a lot of work. Everybody's different. Everybody has different factors. And leadership that promotes unity, not division. Recent development projects have highlighted that issue. De-escalation is needed and take more proactive measures.
Thank you. I will now read Callie Carroll's response. Public safety is the most important issue to me. Our citizens need to feel safe in their homes, neighborhoods, and businesses. I will focus on getting our police force fully staffed. As a city, we need transparency in how we plan to recruit and train the best officers. We also need to ensure our police force has the right technology and training to support them in their jobs. Another key to reducing crime in our city is to engage neighborhoods and have open lines of communication between our police force and the neighborhood watch programs. The second issue that is important to me is economic growth and talent retention. Springfield is a growing city. As it continues to grow, we need to make sure that we are investing in a quality of life assets that make people want to live here. This goes hand in hand with talent retention. Springfield has more than 30,000 students that come here. We need to make sure that Springfield has adequate housing and job opportunities for our young professionals as they go into the workforce. The third issue that is important to me is building trust within the community. If trust is built, several other issues can be improved and solved. Currently, our city has a divisive mentality that stems from a lack of communication. I would like to bring stakeholders together to help build relationships that can help our city move forward. Okay, and for this question, you also have a 3-minute time limit. What about young voters gives you hope, and how, as a member of Springfield City Council, would you address the issues that impact them? Bruce?
Thanks for the question. This is I had a different response prepared for this question that I'm just going to pivot from, because what I'm hearing a lot and what I heard about retention and recruitment of even police officers, right? We're number of police officers short of our budget right now, 80, I think it is roughly. We can't seem to bring people to Springfield to be able to want to come work. And it goes back to my comment about what does this place want to be and look like? And it goes back to your question about the youth. What gives me hope about about youth is an event that I attended last Saturday. There was an event downtown, not this weekend, but the weekend before, that Better Block sponsored. And I'm going to go into detail on it because I think it's really important. There was a presentation by an urban planner in Cincinnati that came down and talked about how they've been rehabilitating some old neighborhoods. But then there were 7 teams of neighborhood people, students from Drury and Missouri State working together. There were 7 teams that shredded. They came up with ideas on how to solve our red flag issues. They were supposed to then get up that evening and present their solutions. Of the 7 teams, 4 of them were mostly young professionals or students. And they had a very common theme. And the common theme was, we just want better transit. We want to be able to get on a bus and go to a park. not necessarily a place of business, but we also want to go to some of the open spaces. And, you know, 4 of the teams of the 7 said almost identical things. I'm not saying that's the most important issue on their mind. It seemed to be probably that night or that day. But what's important is that we stand back and listen to what those people want, those 20 somethings in our world, not me, maybe not some of the other folks in this room, but these gentlemen here. What do you guys want from our city 20 years from now? How do you want it to look and feel? That's how we're going to attract and bring and retain more people to our city. And I think in summary, that's what gives me hope, is that those young people were willing to get up and stand up and say what they wanted. And we just need more of that.
Thank you. Jeremy, your response?
Yeah, so I think the thing that inspires me the most about, I will say, my generation, because I fall into it, is probably just the willingness to be in the place where it happens. As you can see, we have a large group of young people here. Whenever you see things going on downtown, there's always young people there. When there's protests outside of public schools or outside the libraries or whatever it may be, you always see young people there. The largest turnout of youngest people ever was in this last election. They're just willing to be there. They want their voices to be heard. They want a seat at the table. And I just think the willingness to get there is just really inspiring. And like Bruce said, we need those voices to be here, because the decisions that are being made on city council today are going to affect our city 30, 40, 50 years from today. And it's important to have the people that are going to be here living that, those choices, to actually have a voice whenever it comes to that.
Thank you. Brandon, your response?
Yeah, so I guess I reflected on this for quite a bit and trying to understand what the differences may be between younger voters and older voters. And I don't think there's necessarily a difference. I mean, we all want to live in a community that we feel we have economic opportunities for, that we feel safe in, and that we have opportunities to have fun and just enjoy our lives. I think the main difference that presented itself to me, and this isn't true of everyone, but younger people are often more willing to take bolder action to see the changes that they want to see in their community. Standing up for what they truly believe is right is something that's really, really inspiring to see within our community, especially. And I'm sure it's in no small part because of the public affairs mission at Missouri State and the folks that our higher education institutions bring into our city. But we have to figure out a way of how to keep those people here. So making sure, again, that we have that economic opportunities, that folks can see a future for their career within our community. They see a house that fits the way they want to live within our community, and they feel safe walking with friends downtown or walking through their neighborhood with their family whenever they get older. So just making sure that we're creating the world that we want to live in 20 years.
Thank you. Abe, your response?
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. That's a good question. And I taught school here at MSU. I taught a class, and I used to tell my students the first day of class, I want you to be successful. I want you to be successful in life, in your profession. And they said, well, Professor McGall, why you want us to be successful? Because my Social Security depends on you. And I want this. And one of the things I've learned in the military, and we retired from the military, we used to train the person train your replacement. That's what I want to do. My wife, Krista, is here. And we want to just travel and enjoy ourselves because we want to hand it over to the next generation. And I am so inspired about what goes on here at MSU, the candidates that are running, that are interested in making our community a strong, safe, and vibrant community. I'm encouraged by it. And if I had to give you any advice, I think it was mentioned earlier. If you are interested in joining the city, being part of the city, join one of our boards or commissions. Those things are a fascinating way to learn local government. And we really need to fill so many of those positions with our citizens. So I'm encouraged about the future of our city. I'm encouraged about the youth. And like I said earlier, my wife and I is just going to travel now and turn it all over to the next generation.
David, your response?
Thoughts that younger voters, what gives me hope is I can learn something from them. I don't know everything. My daughter teaches me something new every day. Diversity of ideas is good. Diversity of ideas lets you make the best decision. I thought about the issues that impact young voters. There's a lot of issues that impact young voters, how to address them on council. Employment that's why you're going to college. You hope to get a good job in education so you can get employed, so you can be productive members of society and community and feel good about that, giving back to the community. I would do that on council by creating an environment of prosperity, much like Brandon said, that there are jobs available. My biggest donors are business people in Springfield. They understand and they're concerned about crime. So.
Thank you. I will now read Callie Carroll's response. I love to see young voters engaged, not just engaged in voting, but also engaged in decisions that are being made in our city. I say it all the time. The decisions being made in our city now will impact for generations to come. That is why it is important that we are involved in the conversation and the decision-making process. Forward SGF is a roadmap of what our citizens want to see in Springfield in the future. That is why during the planning phase of Forward SGF, it was important to get the younger generations to attend these planning sessions. We even held tailgate parties before meetings to show the under 35 crowd that city planning can be fun. As a member of City Council, I can address issues that impact young voters because I am a slightly older young voter and I was a young voter not too long ago. I am currently the chair of the College Student Outreach Committee for Springfield Young Professionals, so I'm around college students very often. It is important to keep those communication lines open so I know what types of issues are impacting our youngest voters. Okay, thank you, City Council candidates, for coming out tonight. I'm going to ask, do we have a few minutes for questions from the audience? Okay, yes, we do.
Okay, we've got a mic here and we had some questions that came in from the audience. And I think what we'll try to do is we tried to choose some that will work for the mayoral candidates as well as the city council candidates. And so I'll give you sort of a round time of a minute on your response. And you haven't seen these questions in advance, so I'll read them slowly. Y'all can think about it. We can repeat them if we need to, but then if it's okay, I will read the questions, take the mic over here to the mayoral candidates, and then we can come right down. Does that make sense? All righty. So one question we got from the audience was, how can we ensure all voices are heard? So how can we ensure all voices are heard?
Good question. All available resources need to be used. That's neighborhood meetings, that's city council meetings, that's email, all of the social media that comes in. And ultimately, it's trying to get all of the appropriate folks at the table. And so once you get that, then we have to go through, focus on exactly where the points of agreement are, where the points of disagreement are, and try to focus on what we can do. A good example of that has occurred with our Forward SGF, as well as our housing study last week. We had, as I mentioned, 10,000 points of contact where voices could come in and talk about what they wanted our city to look at. Last week, we had interaction with housing. People could come up and they could put their little marks down. Where do they think it's important on that? So the bottom line is all available resources.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Melanie.
I agree that it is important to use all available resources to get feedback from the public, from the surveys to city council, planning and zoning hearings, and community meetings. But I think that in my experience, the more important thing is, what are we going to do with that information? We have to actually do what we're saying. We can't just listen and give lip service. We have to take actions based on what the community is asking us to do. So I think that there's a part of feeling heard that becomes irrelevant if you don't feel like that it's really making a difference. So I think that the public and the engaged community needs to really see the end result, that their input that they gave actually made a difference.
Thank you so much. So if the city council candidates could go down the line and answer too. Thank you.
So in order to be heard, somebody has to listen. And I think that's at least half of the issue, right? I mean, a lot of people talk, but not everybody listens. And so one of the things I've started doing now as part of my candidacy and will continue to do through my term would be, I took a little lesson from Chief Williams' playbook, and I'm doing coffee with Bruce at coffee shops all over town. Different parts of town, different parts of our city, different kinds of coffee shops. And it's interesting who all shows up at those. Sometimes coming to a council meeting and trying to have your say and getting up and making a speech is really sort of hard. But sitting down over a cup of coffee is really easy. And the group is a little smaller. The one thing I've learned from that is one of the people I talked to looked at me and said, you know, I've tried to talk to several of our candidates and council people, and you're the first one that's listened. So in order to be heard, somebody has to listen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that is exactly the same route I was going to go is you have to be there to listen. One of the other things that you have to do is you have to go to those people. One thing that I try to make a really big point in during my specific campaign is that I am going to people's houses to listen to them. You can't expect people to come and show up to your neighborhood meetings. You can't expect them to show up to city council meetings. I don't know if you've ever even watched one on the Facebook Live. 30 people are usually on that. So you can't expect people to come to you. You have to go to them. I think being willing as a city council to be willing to go out to those neighborhoods, maybe have those meetings with those people in their actual neighborhoods or even on their doorstep is something that we could really do a lot of more of.
Thanks.
Thank you. So community engagement is one of my favorite aspects of local government. I believe that local government is the best place to be able to affect real change within the world that you see around you. And so I would echo some of the same things that were set up here, meeting people where they are and using some of the structures that we already have in place. So going back to the question earlier about working with younger voters, we have student government associations at the high school and at the collegiate level, tapping those individuals and allowing for them to have meaningful feedback directly with their elected officials in a way that they can help shape some of the decisions that we make as a city so that we do continue to be a city that folks want to live in for years to come, but then also not shying away from hard conversations. I'm sure that if elected, I'm not always going to be able to make every single person happy, but being willing to sit down with anybody and have a crucial conversation with them about where they're coming from, why they're making the choices that they are, and then trying to make as informed of a decision as possible. I think it's crucial for any elected official to represent everybody that they're supposed to.
Thank you.
I think availability, that's one of the things that gets me in trouble with my wife. She tells me I listen too much and talk too much to people. But I think making myself available, I think or any elected official should make themselves available. Every fourth week of the month, I make myself available at City Hall. I take calls from people. They have me on the hotline, so to speak, to whenever they have an issue. And that's the best part of my job. I really enjoy that. When a citizen comes to me and say, hey, I have a flooding issue, I have something wrong, these cars are going too fast. I like the fact that I can pick up the phone and talk to the right people and get a result. And that gives me a whole lot of, goosebumps inside to know that local government really is responsive to the average citizen, the everyday citizen. So making yourself available is the thing I've always done throughout my career and as an elected official.
Thank you.
My turn. The advantage of being last, you can just say what they said. So go to events like this. Just hang out afterwards, let you voice your concerns and ideas. Intentional relationship building. You have to build intentional relationships, which means you have to be intentional. Identify the associations, go to a group meeting, reach out. The big is an intentional relationship. And like Councilman McGull said, shut up and listen.
Thank you very much. So I've got another question that I'll start with Melanie. if That's okay. And we'll just go the same way we did before, about a minute for this. Thank you, audience, for your really thoughtful questions. We tried to combine them and pick up the themes and respond to those. And one question that came in was, how would you measure success if you're chosen for your position?
I think that you can especially see this in the zone council seats. When your zone is happy with you and is telling people that you're a great representative, that is the measure of success, in my opinion. So as mayor, it would be, is the city happy with the way that I'm performing as mayor? Do they feel listened to and heard? And are we improving on some of the areas that we need to, such as crime, housing, homelessness? We need to be able to measure our success in all of those areas. And also transparency is a big one. So I would say that I would measure success based upon the public's opinion of my success.
We're back to the question of public feedback. The best feedback that I get that either affirms or says you need to do something different is what I see in the grocery store, what I hear at church, what I hear in the restaurant. If I go on Sunday morning to eat breakfast and people will say, you know, this is good. I like that. Keep it up. Or we've got a problem. I had a man talk to me the other day about recycling and how we do that. I was eating breakfast on a Sunday morning. He said, I hate to bother you, but this is something that's been of concern to me. So the way you measure success ultimately is what you hear in the way of feedback, because people will tell you what they think. They'll tell you what they think you're doing right. They'll tell you what they think that you're doing wrong. I can go to church and you'll get feedback there. And it's funny because people will say, I hate to bother you here at church, but here's an issue and all of that. And so ultimately it gets that to what you listen to and what you hear and what people tell you, because they'll tell you what you're doing right and they'll tell you what you need to improve upon. And so that's the measure of success, in my opinion.
Thank you, Bruce. You can go now.
So there's a lot of statistics out there that you can follow and measure from. But I'm going to depart from statistics and just talk about one of the things that I think is truly important with our city right now that I can see happening and I would measure success against. And that is I attended a neighborhood association meeting last week where the neighborhood association has a overlay district established that shows exactly how they want their neighborhood to grow. Much like the forward SGF plan as we have as a city, that neighborhood generated a plan of what they think their neighborhood should look like 20 years from now. And I feel like one measure of success, in my opinion, for my role and responsibility on council would be that every neighborhood would have their own neighborhood plan that was very similar to that.
Thank you. Jeremy?
So the first thought that popped into my head was, I'm going to judge it completely off of how many watchdog complaints I get from Linda Simpkins. Just kidding. But this, I think it really comes down to what people are saying to you. So, I mean, if every time that I go out in the community and people are telling me that what I'm saying whenever I'm sitting there on city council is not what they believe or not what they think or not what they want to hear, then I'm going to know that I'm doing a bad job along with the re-election. If somebody chooses to run against me and they get a lot of support, then I'm going to know that I'm doing a bad job. Essentially, I'm here to listen to people. That's how I judge my success, is based off of listening to people. So if you think I'm doing a bad job, if I'm lucky enough to have the spot, please come and tell me. I promise to listen to you, and that is how I would judge that.
Oh, thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of objective measures that we can look at to determine how successful we are in addressing some of our community's challenges, whether it's the number of unhoused folks, the number of crime calls that are coming into the community, the number of objectives that we're completing within the forward SGF plan. But I think going a little bit more to my personal philosophy, I've always been raised that you don't stop and enjoy your success until the job is fully done. So I don't necessarily know how to answer that question, because no matter how well we do as a city council, there's always going to be more work to be done. So I'm not sure if I'm ever going to feel successful if I were elected to this position, but that's what will drive me to keep making changes in our community.
Thank you, Abe.
Thank you. I kind of agree. To me, success is a constant process of improvement. And I don't think you could ever reach a level of total satisfaction. I mean, even our Constitution says in order to create a more perfect union, it's a constant process of us making it better than it was the generation before, us aspiring to greater and better things. I mean, to me, success is when I guess failure would be us not dreaming anymore, not desiring to be the best that we can ever be. We're always in competition. That's the way America is. That's what I love about it. So I don't think we can attain that level of success, but if I had to measure it, it would be when I get a little less phone calls, people are really happy with me.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, how do you measure success? The obvious measures would be, do you have more people leaving the city or you have more people coming to the cities? Or population growing or decreasing? A lot of big cities, a lot of cities, people are leaving because of crime and other issues. What's your crime rate look like? It's a measurable success. That's a benchmark. Do we talk about SMART goals, specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable, realistic, and timed? I think we have to start looking and setting goals. So a lot of us, you set benchmarks, and you look at that, you reevaluate that in a year, it would meet those goals. And also you look at the environment in the city. Is there a lot of division? Is there disunity going on? I think those are more of a subjective measure, but specifically you need to set a benchmark. What do we want to do and accomplish? Have people come into Springfield. We want more development. We want more division. We want more businesses coming in. Do we want lower unemployment in the city? Do we want to be better in St. Louis, Kansas City, Denver, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles? I don't want to look like any of those places. No way close. Springfield is very unique. There's an SGF Forward Plan 2020, and that's what we need to focus on.
Thank you. Again, thank you to all the candidates that came out today. And then, okay, so now I'm going to invite to the stage the woman that made all this happen partially, Dr. Walker Pacheco, faculty coordinator.
It's a good thing we didn't give Emma a big hook because I think she would have used it. Anyway. So first of all, thank you once again for our candidates and not only for today, for your participation, but also for contributing to our first local election voter guide that we'll be distributing soon. So you all responded to that, and also the school board candidates did as well. So we'll be distributing that soon, and that will be available on our website and also paper copies by right after spring break. So can watch for that. This is being recorded. So if you know people that were not able to come today, please let them know. It'll be on the public affairs website. You can always email if you have any questions about any of this, pause2thepolls@missouristate.edu, and we will get back to you. So thank you to the Office of Public Affairs Support as well, as usual, for all of their support in all of our endeavors related to increasing civic engagement. And thank you guys for taking time out of your day to attend today instead of, being in a hammock in the sun on the nice day. And special thank you, of course, to the Pause to the Polls students and our graduate assistant, Zion Stevens, is are amazing. So the energy, the innovation, and the enthusiasm is just it's been amazing, and we're growing, moving forward. So and thanks. And special thanks also to our moderators for today. So, and if you have questions for our candidates, then they will be available if you didn't get to ask your questions earlier. So they'll be available for a little bit for you to come up and interact with them as well. Thanks.